All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel O'Leary. I'm an assistant director in the Office of Student Financial Services at Hofstra University. Welcome and thank you for attending tonight's financial aid workshop. Just a couple of notes before we begin. You may have seen the welcome screens when you first signed in. If you do have any issues hearing me, just please send a quick note in the chat to let me know. But we do recommend, if you're able to join us online, we have had users in the past experience issues with the call-in audio. So if you do experience any issues with your phones calling in, just try to sign in online. That sometimes helps fix the issue. We'll try to keep this presentation to under an hour. We know it's late and everything. There's a lot going on right after the new year. So we're going to do our best to get through quickly, but make sure we give as much information as we can. If for some reason you need to leave early, we know it's a school night for many. Don't worry, we will send a recording of the webinar out to every person who registered tonight. So if you need to leave early, don't worry about it. We will send that recording out to you. So Student Financial Services is your one-stop service office for assistance with financial aid, billing, and payments. We're not a traditional financial aid office, and we understand that an excellent college education is an investment, and we understand that it's a big investment. Applying for financial aid, paying for college can often seem daunting. We get that. We've been through this before, whether it's as students, as parents ourselves. So we're here to help you, and there are many options and resources available to help you along the way, and our office is a great starting point for any questions that you may have. In tonight's workshop, we're going to discuss the different federal, New York State, and institutional financial aid programs that are available to help finance the cost of a Hofstra education. We'll just briefly touch on all of the different programs. We usually have a workshop and a webinar later on, either in February or March, that'll go over into payment options a little bit more in depth. So we're just going to touch on the surface of the different financial aid programs, but we are going to touch on how and when to file the FAFSA if you haven't already done so. Screenshots of different sections on the FAFSA. We're going to go into the changes that were made beginning with the 2017-2018 year. For those who have been through the financial aid process before and applying for financial aid, whether as your parents, if you've been through this yourself, or if you have other children in college, or if you're students who are joining us tonight and have siblings in college, there are a few major changes that were made for this year. So we're going to touch on that. And also we're going to give you tips and resources on how to guide you through this process, where to go. So if you have any questions along the way, just type them into the chat. I'll do my best at the end of tonight's presentation to go through as many questions as I can, but I do ask that if you can, please try and keep your questions general. You may be asking some great questions that other people are going to have as well, but if you do have any personal questions specific to your own family's and personal situation, please email sfs@hofstra.edu with your name, your phone number, and your Hofstra ID number, so one of our counselors can reach out to you next week. And that's just, we want to make sure that we're giving you the most individual attention that we can if you do have any personal questions. So that's why we ask, if you do have any personal situations you want to discuss with us, just reach out to us by phone or email. But if you email sfs@hofstra.edu with your information, we'll definitely have a counselor reach out to you next week. Okay, so what exactly is financial aid? Financial aid is all of the different sources of funding available to help finance a student's college cost of attendance, and it's comprised of three main categories: federal work-study, grants and scholarships, and loans. Federal Work-Study is a program for qualifying students which allows students to work on campus, and students earn a paycheck if they're working on campus. So any student that is working on campus does not necessarily have money deducted from their tuition bill. It's money that's paid to the student, and that is good to help pay for any expenses that a student has along the way. Grants and scholarships are gift aid, so that is free money to students that does not have to be repaid. Grants and scholarships, this is the type of financial aid that we get the most questions about. It's the type of financial aid that everyone wants. Everyone likes free money. Everyone wants free money to help pay for college, and there are a variety of different sources for grants and scholarships that we'll touch on here tonight. Loans, which can be in the form of student loans or parent loans. Those are types of financial aid that are repaid over time with interest. As an education loan, parents can repay loans after the student is no longer enrolled. So whether that is if a student takes a leave of absence or withdraws at any point in the semester, we hope that doesn't happen. But certain life situation require students to take some time off of school. So repayment will not be required while a student is enrolled. It can be deferred until after a student graduates. The federal work-study eligibility, it's a need-based program, and that is a program to help pay students for working on campus. Since tuition bills are not deducted by federal work-study earnings, it's a great way for students to earn some extra money. Students do have other expenses while going to college, such as books, transportation expenses, spending money on the weekend. So any work-study wages are paid directly to students in a paycheck. If your student is eligible for federal work-study, it's determined through the FAFSA and the information that's on the FAFSA. So any student that is going to be eligible for federal work-study and files a FAFSA, we will include the eligibility on the financial aid award letter. So if you see it on the financial aid award letter, just keep in mind it's not deducted from the tuition bill. That's a common question that we get every year because it's listed as a financial aid award, but it's not a financial aid award that is deducted from a student's tuition bill. Since federal work-study is need-based, eligibility is determined by the FAFSA, so that means not every student is eligible for federal work-study. But that doesn't mean if your student is not eligible for the federal work-study that they can't work on campus. At Hofstra, there are other part-time positions available, whether it's an undergraduate assistantship, just a regular part-time job, working in different departments through campus. Our Office of Student Employment does post a variety of different positions, and whether the position is a federal work-study designated position or just a regular part-time job will be specified on that posting. Working on campus allows students not to just the opportunity to earn some extra money, but they're earning more than just their degree. It's a great way to network on campus, gain valuable work experience. For some students, this might be the first job they have. So it's a really great resume builder for students as they begin their journey through college. We do have a question if the recorded session will be sent out later on. I just want to remind everyone that yes, if you have to leave for any reason, don't worry, we will send a recording out to everyone who registered for the event. So gift aid, that's the free money that everyone wants that students and families do not need to repay. Just by applying to Hofstra University, students are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships. There's no separate application to be considered for a Hofstra scholarship. At Hofstra, the Alumni Relations Office also offers scholarships. Many are for descendants of Hofstra alumni, but some are for any qualifying student. Our Alumni Office will begin to post their scholarship applications to their website shortly, so the applications are completed directly through the Alumni Office. For students participating in intercollegiate sports, you would have to contact your coach directly to inquire about athletic funding. We recommend that all students and families file the FAFSA at least for the first year to see what the student is eligible for. As we mentioned, all students are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships. Merit scholarships and grants go hand in hand. They're both free money. Scholarships are typically merit-based. Grants can be for a variety of different reasons. So just by filing the FAFSA, students are automatically considered for need-based grants. And just by filing the FAFSA, students are eligible to be considered for federal grants. So the FAFSA determines eligibility for federal grant programs such as the Pell Grant and the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. And these two grants are awarded to students demonstrating the highest level of financial need. New York State residents might be eligible for the TAP grant. So TAP is a New York State grant awarded to dependent students whose family has a New York State net taxable income plus any untaxed state pensions that is no greater than $80,000 per year. So a common question that we get every year is, what is the income limit to be eligible for grants? It really depends. We have our own model for awarding need-based grants. just by filing the FAFSA. So every Hofstra applicant, every Hofstra student, an applicant who files the FAFSA will automatically be considered for grants. And there's not necessarily a specific criteria for that. The Pell Grant, students do need to demonstrate exceptional financial need to be eligible for federal grants, and there is a strict income threshold for state grants. So there are many outside organizations and associations that sponsor scholarships, and these can typically be found by researching them online, at a library, in newspapers, as well as in high school guidance offices. Thousands of scholarships can be searched for online for free at websites such as fastweb.com, findaid.org, scholarships.com, collegeboard.com. We really recommend that every student and family search through these websites to see what is available. We hear the stereotypical scholarships that, if my student's left-handed, there's scholarships available. If I'm from a certain background, there's scholarships available. There are so many different types of scholarships available, and the only way to know what's really out there is by taking a look at these different websites and applying to any scholarships that you might be eligible for. So now into loans. Federal Stafford loans are student education loans available to students by filing the FAFSA. The information on the FAFSA allows our office to determine whether or not a student is eligible for the subsidized Stafford loan. The subsidized Stafford loan does not accrue interest while the student is in school, so it's considered a need-based type of loan. The unsubsidized loan, like most other loans, will begin to accrue interest while the student is in school. Parents of dependent undergraduate students are eligible to apply for a Parent Plus loan. That's the other federal loan option aside from Stafford loans. And the Parent Plus loan can be used to cover any educational expenses that are not covered by a student's financial aid awards. The rates that we see here for the federal loans are for the 2016-2017 year. 2017-2018 rates will be available closer to the summer. So the rates could fluctuate from each year depending on what's approved by Congress. So these are the rates for this current year. Students may also apply for alternative loans through private banks or lenders. Students typically do need to be 18 in order to apply for a private loan, and a cosigner is typically required. Since alternative loans are offered and applied through private companies, rates and terms may vary, so the school does not have any association with determining rates and terms and conditions, and neither does the government. These are private companies, so they determine their own rates based on their own criteria. We often hear that home equity loan rates are fairly competitive, so if this is an option for your family, just please consult with your banking institution since it is not an education loan. So now to go over the new financial aid timeline beginning with the 2017-2018 year. As of October 1st, the FAFSA TAP and the CSS profile applications all became available to complete. In order to file the FAFSA, students and one parent should apply for an FSA ID. It's a Federal Student Aid ID, which replaced the PIN number a few years ago. This personal identification number is specific to each individual. So any parents who have multiple children in college, they can use their own FSA ID to apply and sign for each student's FAFSA. It's important to note that students log into the FAFSA with their FSA ID and they sign the FAFSA with their FSA ID. If a student is dependent, then one parent must sign the FAFSA with the FSA ID. So the FSA ID is specific to each individual social security number. So that's why parents can use the FSA ID to sign multiple FAFSAs, whether it's themselves going back to college or for other children that are in college. And the CSS profile is an application that is not required by Hofstra. Hofstra doesn't participate in the CSS profile, so if you have to complete it for some other schools, it won't be an option to submit the application to Hofstra. So until this year, financial aid award notifications were not sent out until late February, early March. Since the FAFSA is available earlier this year, it was available as of October 1st, 2016, we're hoping to send out our financial aid awards to admitted Hofstra students within the next few weeks. So we really recommend that you continue to check your emails, the same email that any admission information was sent to. Award notifications will be sent to the student advising when the financial aid award letter is available to view online. It's available to print online. You can pull it up online. If you come to campus, any counselor will be available to pull up the award letter. So we are expecting that to go out within the next few weeks, which is earlier than prior years. If you're requested to submit documentation such as verification of income, proof of citizenship, please submit these requirements as early as possible. Your student aid report that FAFSA sent you should have any notification of specific requirements that are needed for the schools to process your financial aid. And when you log onto the Hofstra portal to view your financial aid award when that's available, there will be a missing requirements tab. So if any requested documentation is needed from you, please submit that as early as possible. It'll prevent delays with the processing your financial aid. With the FAFSA being available earlier, hopefully the award letters will be as accurate as possible. But if any requested documentation is needed, then we want to make sure that it's submitted early so we can make sure that your financial aid awards are accurate and finalized quickly. May 1st is the national reply date. That's when students decide where they're going to go to college next year. Billing and loan applications will become available shortly after May 1st. So we're already into January. May is going to be here before you know it. So please take the time over the next few months, once financial aid packages are received, to have a discussion with Hofstra and with the counselors in our office to go over the options, go over the cost. This way, as a family, you can make an educated decision about where your student is going to go to college. This way, right after May 1st, you'll be ready for the next steps to secure financing for going to college. Okay, so who is eligible for federal aid? U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens, such as permanent residents, are eligible to file the FAFSA and receive federal aid. Any male between the ages of 18 and 25 must register with Selective Service. When you complete the FAFSA, if you do have a male that is under the age of 18, or even if the male is over the age of 18, there's an option to register the student automatically as soon as the student turns 18. So if your student's 17 at the time of filing the FAFSA, you can click the option to have FAFSA register you for Selective Service. This way, when the student turns 18, they'll automatically be registered. And if your student is over the age of 18, you click Register Me, then the student will be automatically registered. Students must have a valid Social Security number in order to apply for an FSA ID and file a FAFSA. So if the parent does not have a Social Security number for any reason, just enter zeros under the parent information on the FAFSA. This might make things a little bit difficult if both parents do not have a Social Security number, because they won't be able to apply for an FSA ID. If this situation applies to you, at the end of the FAFSA, it's going to print out a paper sheet to sign the FAFSA, so your parent and any parent that does not have a Social Security number can still sign the FAFSA. It'll just have to be by paper. Unfortunately, at this time, deferred action students, known as DACA students, are not eligible to file a FAFSA and are not eligible for federal financial aid. That's a question we get every year. So just note that if a student falls under this criteria, they could still be considered for Hofstra financial aid, but unfortunately, federal and state financial aid would not be available. Okay, so why file the FAFSA? Now, the first reason is it's free. The CSS profile that any schools require does have a cost to file an initial application and a subsequent applications. The FAFSA is completely free to file. It determines eligibility for federal grants, federal loans, federal WorkStudy. Some states, including New York, if you're a New York State resident that will be attending a New York State college and you might be eligible for some New York State aid. The FAFSA is the first part of an application process for financial aid. Some colleges, including Hofstra, require it for consideration of grants. The FAFSA is not required for Hofstra scholarships, but in order to be considered for any Hofstra grants, then the FAFSA must be filed. So what will you need when you file the FAFSA? You want to collect all documents for both the student and the parent. All sources of 2015 taxed and untaxed income, such as tax returns, W-2 form, benefit statements. Any 2015 tax information is what's going to be used to file the 2017-2018 FAFSA. With the FAFSA available a little bit early, we'll go over that a little bit more over the next couple of slides. The IRS data retrieval is a great way to simplify the process. So when you're filing the FAFSA under both student and parent tax information, you can click on the box to use the IRS data retrieval, and it'll pull the information in directly from the IRS. Then we'll know for sure that that information is accurate. Asset information, such as your most recent bank statements, investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. Most recent asset information is what's required, not 2015. So that's where confusion might occur. It's 2015 tax information and most recent bank and investment information. You want to have your social security numbers ready, driver's license, alien registration numbers. You want all of those things when you go to file the FAFSA. So what's changing for 2017-2018? Well, the biggest change was that it was available earlier. Traditionally, families used to have to wake up at midnight on New Year's Day if they weren't in bed yet, and if they were in bed, they were going right to the computers to file the FAFSA. That's not something that you need to do anymore. The FAFSA is available as of October 1st, and this change will be permanent. Aside from being available earlier tax information is now required to file the FAFSA. So this is a pretty handy chart to know what tax return you're going to be using to file what FAFSA. So for example, currently enrolled students are using the 2015 tax information to file the 2016-2017 FAFSA. That's for students currently enrolled. But then again, next year, since it's the first year that this change is being implemented, 2015 tax information will be used again. This has been coined by the government as prior year. We're calling it simply an earlier FAFSA launch, early FAFSA, earlier tax return. So when your students go into their sophomore year, the 2018-2019 year, that's when 2016 tax information will be using. So the best way to think about what FAFSA is going to be used, if your student is entering college in the fall of 2017 and will be enrolled through the spring of 2018, then it's the 2017-2018 FAFSA. And then from the 2017 year, take 2 years prior, and that's the tax return you use. So for the next year, that's the 2015 tax return. So why are these changes being made? With their early FAFSA launch, when you're applying for colleges, you can now do your financial aid applications at the same time. Many college admission application deadlines occur in the fall, and then you used to have to wait a few months before you can file the FAFSA, then wait another few months for financial aid award letters. So by having the FAFSA available a little bit earlier, you can do both applications at the same time and maybe start to get decisions around the same time. New York State TAP, which is serviced through HESC, the CSS profile serviced through the College Board, they're all available as of October 1, and this is going to be a permanent change. So every year, as you file these applications each year, they'll all be available as of October 1st, and they'll all be using the same information. Another reason is to have certainty. With using an earlier tax year, you're going to have your taxes already prepared when you go on to file the FAFSA. When compared to last year, students would need to file the FAFSA as of January 1st, wait to file their taxes, sometimes not until April, and that put it very close to the May 1st deadline. So now that the FAFSA is available as of October 1st, you're using the tax information that you filed the previous April. So as of October 1st, you already have your taxes that you need to file the FAFSA. So this way you don't need to estimate information anymore. You can put the accurate tax information onto the FAFSA, and you'll be available to use the IRS data retrieval tool immediately. So that'll be really helpful to file the FAFSA as quickly as possible. So a quick FAFSA frequently asked Question, can a student choose to report 2016 information? Unfortunately, no. Each FAFSA is year specific to the year that the student's going to be enrolled. So the 2017-2018 FAFSA is for the academic year of 2017-18, and the students and families must use 2015 tax information. You can't choose to use more current information. So if questions are answered inaccurately, your FAFSA could be selected for an audit called verification. But also remember that certain FAFSA questions are asked as of today. So just be careful when you're reading through the FAFSA which information is required. But more importantly, what if your student's financial and family's financial situation change? 2015 is now almost 2 years old for when you filed your last tax return for 2015. So speak with colleges directly. If you're accepted to a college and there's a change in your family's financial situation, just get in touch with that college, and every college has a process to handle these changes. I'm going to do a quick audience poll. The question is, have you already filed the 2017-2018 FAFSA? So if you could just take a couple of minutes and put in whether or not you filed the 2017-2018 FAFSA. The next few slides, we're going to be going into the FAFSA a little bit more in depth. So I just want to kind of get an idea. When we do this in person, we want to gauge our audience to see who's already filed, who hasn't filed. So it looks like the majority of those who are here tonight have not started the FAFSA, or they started but have not submitted the FAFSA, which is really great. Because with the FAFSA being available earlier, and by attending this webinar, you're looking for the information, but it's still early. Since May 1st is still 5 months away, you have plenty of time to file the FAFSA, get your information, and make a decision. So don't think you're too late in the game. You're still very early compared to where we were last year, where last year students and families were just starting to file their FAFSA. And we're still waiting on information. So we should get some information out within the next couple of weeks. If you have this information already filed, if not, don't worry, it's still very early in the game. Okay, so this is what the FAFSA homepage looks like. If you go to FAFSA.gov, you're going to be directed to either start a new FAFSA. That's if you have not started the 2017-2018 FAFSA yet. If you started it, saved it, and coming back, you can just click Login to go. There are also some helpful information on this webpage. Any specific deadlines are available here. College searches available here. If you want to print out a FAFSA on the web worksheet, or if you want to print out a paper FAFSA and look through it before you complete the online application, the FAFSA filing options link is what you can use. But please note that if you do print out a paper FAFSA, if you look for a paper FAFSA, it is not recommended that you file a FAFSA by paper. We have been told in the past, and we've experienced in the past, that it could take several weeks, 7 to 11 weeks to be more specific, for FAFSA to process a paper application. So we know that with all the online, security issues, we haven't really heard of any security issues with filing the FAFSA. But so it is the preferred method, and it's the most efficient method. And this is what the login page looked like. So again, students and one parent, will need an FSA ID to log into the FAFSA. So as you're going through it, just make sure you're putting the student information where the student information is, the parent information where the parent information is. So to log into the FAFSA, you're going to be entering the student's FSA ID. You do have the option to enter the student's information, but as we talked about earlier, the FSA ID isn't only used to log into the FAFSA, it's used to sign the FAFSA. So if you sign in with the student's information and not the student's FSA ID, you will need the ID at the end to sign the FAFSA. So it'll make it a little bit quicker to log in with the ID to begin with. And then this is how you get started. So you can click on 2017-2018 to begin the FAFSA for next year. As you see, the 2016-17 FAFSA is available still. That's for currently enrolled students. So the 2017-2018 bolded is for students that will be going to college next year. On the next slide, it'll give you a preview of the different steps to the FAFSA. As you see circled at the top, student demographics is a question in the section on the FAFSA, your school selection and housing status, dependency status, whether or not parental information is required. If parental information is required, you're going to put parent demographics information in, student and parent financial information. Then you sign and submit the FAFSA, and it goes to the confirmation page. On this first page, there are also a few links with some frequently asked questions and where to get help. And now onto the student demographics section. So this is where you put the student's biographical information, their address, their phone number, an email. So that's where all the email information will go to. So it's important to follow that carefully. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see a Need Help button. You can click on the Need Help button at any point when you're going through the FAFSA. And as you start clicking on different items, a helps and hints button will come up on the right. So for an example, if you click on any of the fields within the demographic section, if that question typically has some questions about it, then you can go and just look at the helps and hints button and try and get some help. And this is when I answer that you're a U.S. citizen. If the student is a permanent resident, then you can check that, and it'll ask for the alien registration number. Here's that question about selective service. So if you are already registered, if the male student is 18, you can click on yes, they're already registered. If you click no, that's when the option will pop up to register you with selective service once your male student turns 18. It's going to ask what grade level you've completed. If you're going to college for the first time next year, you'll be working on your first bachelor's degree. So keep that in mind, that it's going to ask what your grade level will be next year. So some students put senior, that's your senior year in high school. So where it says your college grade level, for those who are going into college for the first time next year, it'll be your freshman year. And here is the school selection and housing plans. If you need to change the school codes at all, that is the only change you can make by phone for the FAFSA, but it's really easy to do. So here you see you can click Add a School. You will be able to search for the school code, change the housing plans, and you can list up to 10 schools on the FAFSA. And you can have different housing plans, whether it's going to be with parent for a commuter, on campus if your student wants to reside on campus. So you can put different housing plans for each college. So a frequently asked question: I can only send the FAFSA to 10 colleges online. What if I need to send the FAFSA to more? So with the FAFSA, if we go back to the previous slide, you can add and remove a school. As you see, we're in the right-hand column next to the college choices is remove. At the bottom is add a school. So if you need to add and remove schools, you can do so at any time. Once you add a school and that FAFSA transaction is sent to that school, they'll keep that transaction. And then if you need to add and remove at any point, you can just remove and re-add any of the new colleges. So here is the dependency status question. It's a common question we get. All of these questions, if they're answered no, then the student is automatically dependent. So the age of 24 is the benchmark for whether a student is independent, not 18. So students might be legally independent in their state when they turn 18, but for federal aid, students are not independent until the age of 24. It asks whether or not the student is married, has dependents, if they're going back to school, if they were a veteran, if they were under legal guardianship or ward of the court for any reasons. Those are some special circumstances where my student might be independent. So if there's any special parental circumstances that you need to discuss, just get in touch with each college individually. One of the questions I did see pop up which we'll go ahead and answer now, was what if the parents refuse to sign the FAFSA? What if the parents refuse to submit income information? Unfortunately, students are still dependent for federal aid if they have any type of communication and they're not emancipated from their parents. So who is considered a legal parent? A legal parent is a biological or adoptive parent, or a person that the state has determined to be your parent. And for example, when a state allows another person's name to be listed as a parent on the student's birth certificate, that is a legal parent and a parent for FAFSA purposes. Grandparents, foster parents, legal guardians, older brothers and sisters who might be caring for a sibling, widowed step parents, aunts and uncles, those are not considered parents unless that person has legally adopted the student. So it's very, gets tricky if there's step parents or if, there are other people in the student's life helping the student in any way. The biological parent or an adoptive parent can only be considered a parent for federal aid. So what if the parents are separated, divorced, living apart? Whose information do you put on the FAFSA? So you should report the information for the parent who the students lived with the most over the last 12 months. And that's regardless of who claims who on a parent's tax return. So parents do not have to be legally separated to file the FAFSA. College may ask for proof of separate residences. And if a parent is remarried, then that step parent's information with whom the student resides with, the step parent's information must be reported on the FAFSA. So a frequently asked question we get every year, and I've already seen a couple come up. If the student lives with one parent and that parent is remarried, that parent plus the step parent, both of their information is required to be reported on the FAFSA, and that's a federal requirement to get an idea of the finances for the household. And here we show the parent demographic section. It'll ask the marital status of the parents, the household size. It'll ask this information to determine the household information. And here we go into the tax information. So first up is completing the parent tax information. It'll ask for 2015, what's your tax filing status, whether you completed your taxes. Hopefully everyone has filed their 2015 taxes by now. If not, make sure they're filed as soon as possible if you were on an extension for any reason. And when you click that you filed your tax return already, highlighted under the bottom is the link to IRS. So that is where you click to go into the IRS website. When you click link to IRS, the biographical information will be pre-populated. Then you need to verify the street address that was used to file the tax return. At the bottom, you click submit, and the information gets pulled into the FAFSA. So after you click submit, click transfer now, you'll see all of the items that will be populated into the FAFSA. So just to go back real quick, when you're using the IRS data retrieval, you click on link to IRS. You enter the street address, press submit, verify the information, and click transfer. And then it'll go back into the FAFSA. And as you see in bold next to each item that was transferred, it'll say transferred from the IRS. So then as a university, when we're processing financial aid, we'll know what information came from the IRS. Here is some other financial information that is requested. So as you see, it'll ask for 2015 information, but then at the bottom, it'll ask as of today. So as you're going through the FAFSA, just make sure you're looking at what information is required. It usually will be either what's requested in 2015 or what's requested as of today. And of course, at the right, there'll be a help and hints section. So as you see, this is a common question, parents' net worth of business investments. So for enter the net worth of the current business, and that is a helpful hint as you can go through when you're filing the whole FAFSA. So assets. This is a question we get every year of what information needs to be reported. This is the information as we know it. So asset net worth means the current value of the assets minus what is owed. Assets include cash, checking, savings accounts, any money that is in those accounts. Businesses, if the business has more than 100 employees. If the business does not have more than 100 employees, then the value of the business does not have to be reported. So when it goes to the business question, we'll go back a slide, it's going to ask, at the very bottom, you'll see, as of today, what is your net worth of your parents' current business with 100, or do not include family business if it's less than 100 employees. So for any family businesses, it's only for those who have more than 100 employees. Investment farms need to be reported. Other investments such as real estate other than the home you live with. For FAFSA purposes, the value of your primary home does not need to be reported. Only second properties, rental properties, vacation properties, those properties do have to be reported. UGMA and UPMA accounts for which you are the owner, stocks, bonds, certificate of deposits, those all have to be reported on the FAFSA. And also 529 plans have to be reported, and we'll touch on that too. Assets do not include, as we said, the home in which you live in. UGMA and UPMA accounts for which you are the custodian, but not the owner. The value of life insurance is not considered an asset, and any retirement plan values, 401k plans, pension funds, annuities, that information does not have to be reported on the FAFSA as an asset. So a frequently asked question about 529 plans. How are 529 plans reported? 529 plans are reported under the owner as an investment, not the beneficiary. So if the parent is an owner, then the 529 plan is reported under the parent investment question. If the parent has more than one 529 plans, the value of all 529 plans combined must be reported under the FAFSA under the parent for each FAFSA that is filed. If there's an error along the way, you'll see this box. So an example is if there is a untaxed portion of an IRA distribution, as you see, a box will pop up that's asking whether or not it's a rollover. So the FAFSA has skip logic and other logic built in where if they think that something might be an error, you'll have this box pop up and be able to correct the issue. So under the student information, it's very similar to the parent information. So you'll see link to IRS. You'll put in the student's information, click submit. Then you'll click transfer now. It's exactly the same as it was for parents. And then it'll show that the application was saved and the information was transferred from the IRS. And then the 2015 untaxed income for students and the asset information for students as well. So here is the signature page. So first, to sum up, you go over student demographics, you enter your school selection. This is the blue bar at the top, the dependency status to determine whether student is independent or dependent, parent demographics, and then financial information for parents, then students. And then it's the signature page. So if you need to print your FAFSA information for any reason, such as parents not having social security numbers, then you can print it and sign the FAFSA by paper and send it in. So it'll ask for the students, verify the student's information. This is if the student logged in with the FSA ID. So you click agree and click sign. For the parent signature, it's the same thing. You're going to enter the FSA ID, click agree and sign, and just make sure you click sign before pressing submit. You always want to submit your signatures before submitting the FAFSA. And then it goes to the confirmation page. So this will show that congratulations, your FAFSA was successfully submitted. And it could take anywhere from 3 to 5 business days to process by FAFSA. So as you see on here, it'll say what happens next. So at this point, since Hofstra is in the process of receiving FAFSAs and just starting to process FAFSAs, you'll see that it says 3 to 5 business days to process by FAFSA. And then once we receive that information, we'll begin to start sending award letters out shortly. If there's a sibling in college at the same time, you'll see highlighted in red here is also, does your brother or sister need to complete the FAFSA? So that was noted from the household section. If we remember back under parents information, it's going to ask the household size. If you put 2 in college, it's going to recognize that there's a sibling in college, and you can transfer the parents' information into a new FAFSA. So that's something that's been implemented over the last couple of years to try and simplify the FAFSA filing when there's multiple siblings in college. If you're a New York State resident attending a New York State college, on this confirmation page will also be the link to complete the TAP application. It'll give some information about the schools you applied to. The FAFSA calculation will be listed here. You'll see expected family contribution. That is the FAFSA calculation that is used to determine need-based financial aid, and it'll give an estimated financial aid package. But just note that's based on the FAFSA information. The colleges then use that information to process actual financial aid award packages. So I'm just going to throw another quick poll. There were a few families that have filed a FAFSA. So a quick poll, if you filed your FAFSA, did you find it easy? Was it complicated? Was it very complicated? You experienced nothing but issues? Or were you scared at first and then maybe it wasn't so bad? So just quick poll before we begin to wrap up. Just to give me an idea of how you thought it was to file the FAFSA. Okay, so it looks like for the most part, it wasn't too complicated. Not too complicated was the most popular answer. It's been simplified over the last couple of years, so hopefully, as you get used to it, it won't be so complicated every year. We understand that it is a very lengthy process. Once you file it the first time and you need to do it another 3 years, hopefully it becomes a little bit less lengthy once you become familiar with the FAFSA and how it's filed. So I do, for the most part, I could see that, more positive experiences. There were a couple of you that had some very complicated issues when filing the FAFSA. Sometimes it's technology. We hope technology is the best, but, sometimes there's technology issues. So I'm sorry if you experience those issues. Any other types of issues, be sure to get in touch with our office because we might be able to assist. So what happens next? After your FAFSA is processed, you'll receive a student aid report with estimated eligibility and include the expected family contribution. For those who see that expected family contribution and like, wait, there's no way I could afford this number. Don't worry. The expected family contribution is not what you'll be paying for college. Just consider it an index number that colleges use to determine need-based financial aid. Every school determines merit-based scholarships differently, grants differently, so the expected contribution that is calculated by FAFSA will not be necessarily what you're paying for college. Each school listed on your FAFSA will receive the information you submitted. If the student is accepted for admission, colleges will prepare financial aid packages. Further details regarding awards and other requested documents will be provided within the financial aid package. So once you see the financial aid packages, make sure you're reading it carefully if there's any specific documentation that is requested. And then you'll be able to accept or decline the financial aid online as early as possible, but try to do that by May 1. Right after May 1 is when billing begins. So just make sure that you're putting your plans in place throughout the spring. So after May 1st, we can start the next steps of securing your financial aid before the bill is due in the summer. So to sum up the typical undergraduate financial aid process, in the fall semester, students are filing for an FSA ID. Students and one parent need to apply for an FSA ID at studentaid.gov. If you go to the FAFSA and you try to log in and you don't have an FSA ID, it'll have a link to apply for an FSA ID. So every FAFSA is the student's FAFSA. So that's the FSA ID that you log into the FAFSA with. And then every student signs the FAFSA electronically with their FSA ID. If the student is dependent, one parent will be needing to sign the FAFSA with their FSA ID. After October 1st, all these applications became available, and now we're into January, and this is the time where if you haven't filed the FAFSA, please do so. There isn't really a hard deadline for filing the FAFSA at Hofstra. February 1st is the preferred deadline to make sure that students are receiving their financial aid packages as early as possible and receiving maximum consideration for all different types of financial aid that are available. So our preferred deadline is February 1st. And then April to May is when you're wrapping up your plans on what college you're going to and figuring out all the other steps to secure funding. So verification. If you see the word verification anywhere on your student aid report or on your student's financial aid award letter, please contact the college to make sure that all of the information is submitted. Verification is requested by approximately 30% of FAFSA applicants every year. So we might require additional documentation to make sure that everything on the FAFSA was accurate. So a FAFSA tip. Should I hire a consultant to help me file the FAFSA? We really don't recommend paying a fee when you can get the help you need for free. Specialized FAFSA representatives, if you're having issues inputting information on the FAFSA, there is a live help button to chat with the FAFSA representative online. Federal tax dollars are going towards FAFSA representatives, so you can call 1-800-4FED-AID. Get in touch with the school if your FAFSA was already submitted and you have an issue and need to get in touch with the college. It's a little bit difficult if your FAFSA wasn't filed to have us access that information at Hofstra and colleges throughout the country. We only have access to that FAFSA information really once the FAFSA is submitted. So definitely start with the FAFSA representatives. And if you think the issue, is now at the college level, please just, get in touch with us as well. So what are some common mistakes when students and families file the FAFSA? Not asking for help. We understand it could be a lengthy process, a time-consuming, a complicated process. Please use all of the help that is available from the Department of Education. Get in touch with the financial aid offices if the FAFSA is already filed and there's an issue. File the correct FAFSA for the correct aid year. Don't use nicknames. So my name is Daniel. I can't put Danny on my FAFSA. Everyone can call me Danny, but my legal name, as it is on my Social Security card, is Daniel. Make sure you're using correct Social Security numbers. Make sure that the Social Security number, the address is the same on the FAFSA as it is on the college applications that you're applying to. So make sure if your address has changed, update your admission application. Here are some helpful links. The recording of this FAFSA webinar will go out, so you'll have these links available to you. If you go to Hofstra.edu/SFS, all of the applications, the links for the applications will be available on our website as well. So now I'm going to take a few minutes and go through some questions. We have about 5 minutes to go. If you don't have any questions, thank you for joining us tonight. We will send you a copy of the webinar. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to type them in. I'm going to go through as many as I can. So if you put a question on there, I'm going to do my best to answer it. If you still have any questions, email sfs@hofstra.edu and we'd be happy to help. So again, the difference between a scholarship and a grant, they're essentially the same thing. That's free money. Scholarships are more merit-based, how well a student performed in high school when applying to college. Grants could be for a variety of reasons. They could be academic grants. They could be athletic grants, talent grants, need-based grants. There's a variety of different grants. Scholarships are more based on a student's academic performance. If for whatever reason a family does not file a FAFSA for freshman year, can you file an initial FAFSA for the second year of college? So to be eligible for federal financial aid each year, the FAFSA must be filed each year. You can file the FAFSA the first year and choose not to file the FAFSA the next year. That's more recommended. Fill it out the first year, see what you're eligible for. If there's financial aid that's not useful to you, then you do not have to file the FAFSA in subsequent years. But if you do not choose to file the FAFSA your first year, want to second, third, or fourth year, especially to get loan eligibility, then you can absolutely do so. You can change whether or not you want to file it from one year to another, but also check with the school to see if the FAFSA is required each year for certain awards. What state grants outside of New York are available? So any New York State grants are only for New York State residents attending a New York State school. State grants in New York cannot be transferred out of state. Many other states have a similar policy. So I would recommend checking with your state organization that handles state grants. I know Pennsylvania, I think it's FIA for Pennsylvania. Florida has one. So check to see if those grants are transferable. Some are, some aren't. My tax return was inflated by a one-time 401k disbursement. This will be considered a special circumstance. So if there is a change in income from 2015 to 2016 or 2015-16 to 17, get in touch with our office and we can walk you through what the options are to see if we can reevaluate federal financial aid eligibility. So again, about parents who are divorced and living in different households, the parent with whom the student lives with, that's the parent that gets reported on the FAFSA. If the housing arrangements are 50-50, then it's with the parent on the FAFSA is who provides the most financial support. What if parents refuse to help paying for college and refuse to provide Social Security numbers? Unfortunately, that's not a special circumstance. If students live with their parents, have communication with their parents, students are considered dependent for federal aid, so that information is required. So is it too late to file the FAFSA? Absolutely not. You can file the FAFSA. Our preferred deadline is February 1st. So make sure that you file your FAFSA over the next couple of weeks if you want to receive your financial aid package as early as possible. Even if you file the FAFSA in February or March for any reason, maybe right now you don't think it'll be useful to you, but over the next month you decide to file the FAFSA, you could absolutely file your FAFSA and Hofstra can process a financial aid package for you. Where do you go to apply for the student FSA ID? Studentaid.gov. Or there, when you go to sign the FAFSA, log into the FAFSA, there'll be a link to sign up for an FSA ID. What if the students don't file a separate tax return? When you're going through the student income information, it's going to ask if the student filed a tax return, and you can answer that question no. The question was, do both the parent and student need to complete the FAFSA? So it is one FAFSA. It's the student's FAFSA. Both the parent and the student need an FSA ID to sign the FAFSA. So it's one FAFSA application for the student. The student logs into the FAFSA. Both the student and parent sign the FAFSA. At Hofstra, we bill for the fall semester and spring semester separately. So financial aid is awarded for the year. Half goes towards fall and half goes towards spring since we bill both semesters separately. Is it possible to manually enter the tax return? Yep, you can absolutely enter the tax information manually if you'd like to go by line. If you want to take your time, make sure all the information is accurate, and you can absolutely go through line by line and not use the IRS link. If you're having difficulty finding the IRS data retrieval link, just make sure you checked that you already completed your FAFSA. Certain tax returns, such as if you had an amended tax returns, those aren't eligible to use the IRS link. So if you don't see the link, that could be why. Other than earlier notification of financial aid, what is the benefit to filing sooner? At this point, that is the primary benefit. We're going to give you that information earlier, but also it's going to be accurate tax information. You're using tax information that you filed last spring. In the past, the earlier, the better to receive maximum consideration, but families didn't have their taxes filed yet. So other than finding out financial aid sooner, possibly every college is going to handle that differently. hopefully every FAFSA is accurate when you initially file it. You don't have to estimate information, go back, make corrections. All of the information when you file the FAFSA for the first time will be available for you. If we haven't found out if we've been accepted yet, should we still submit the FAFSA to all the schools? Absolutely. FAFSAs won't be processed until an admission decision is finalized, but you can apply to a school, put the school on the FAFSA. If you haven't applied to the school yet, but you know you will, you can still add them to the FAFSA, but make sure you're submitting both applications. So if you put the school on the FAFSA, I would encourage you to then go ahead and submit the application, especially if you have add Hofstra to your school code on the FAFSA. Just make sure you're submitting a separate admission application to Hofstra. So the question is, if my husband's business has 2 employees, so then any asset information on the business, the value of the business does not get reported, only if the business has more than 100 employees. After applying to a college, should I add it to my FAFSA right away without knowing you got accepted? Absolutely. This way, if you get accepted, you can make sure that you get a financial aid award package from that school. A question about Hofstra scholarships. Are applicants automatically considered for the trustee scholarship or other in-house scholarships? We do have a very limited number of full tuition scholarships that are available. Just by applying to Hofstra, every student who applies will be considered for some sort of merit-based scholarship, and it all depend on the student's academic performance as demonstrated on the admission application. Okay, just a couple of questions because we're just about out of time. A question about full tuition. So Hofstra bills tuition early to mid-June, and tuition is due right after August 1st. And then for the spring semester, we start billing tuition in November, and it's due right after the new year. Question was, do you have higher chances of receiving more money if you submit your FAFSA earlier? Some schools have a priority deadline and strict first come, first serve policy. We recommend submitting your FAFSA as early as possible to make sure that you're receiving your information as early as possible, but also to make sure that if you file the FAFSA, you'll receive maximum consideration for any Hofstra financial aid that we are able to offer you. A question about FAFSA corrections. You can go back and update the FAFSA after it was submitted. That's absolutely true. So when you go to the login page, it's going to ask start a new FAFSA. Login would be for if you've already submitted your FAFSA. So if you already have your 2015 taxes available, you shouldn't really need to update your tax and asset information at all. But if you're updating school codes, housing statuses, you can absolutely make as many corrections as you need to. So that is all the time we have today. We will send out a recording next week to everyone who registered for the event and anyone who attended the event. So we thank you. If you have any questions, you're welcome to contact the Office of Admission for any admission-related questions, and you're welcome to get in touch with our office. The easiest email to remember is admission@Hofstra.edu for admission application-related questions. SFS@Hofstra.edu is for student financial services. So again, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great night.